Hey everybody, welcome back to the Build Show Network. Steve Basic Architect here. And today we're going to continue our talk about air barrier continuity. And one of the places that is always a concern is if the second floor in some parts of a house come out above the first floor and you expose the bottom of that floor frame. How do you deal with it? What are our choices? How do we solve that? Well, let's talk about that today. So you can see here we have this indentation here, right? So this is the front entry of the house. It gets pushed in, obviously, for protection, so I can get out of the weather while I open up the front door or receive guests, et cetera, et cetera. But notice up here, the floor frame comes out. Well, right here on this LVL line, that's in line with the second floor. You can see how it maintains continuity and it's coplanar with the exterior wall there. Well, Kurt and Christie had the framers bring the Siga MyVest down before this little roof got applied. So we have that air barrier continuity that comes down to the front of that beam. We have our exterior weather-resistant barrier and air barrier here that goes up. Now, the connection here is going to be one such that we'll insulate those bays with dense packed cellulose. We'll finish this off with a piece of rigid insulation to thermally break the floor joist, and then we'll apply the sealant. But when we put that rigid insulation in, we'll make sure that we maintain a connection from this wall, and then we'll use that rigid insulation, but then we'll connect to the Siga MyVest on the outside of that beam. Let's go back to the studio. We got this detail. We'll break out Big Red, and we'll continue the talk.
All right. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Little trip out to the site there. Little recessed front entryway. Everybody loves a little negative space. So how do we close it off? Well, that's what we're going to talk about. We got Big Red. We're going to continue the discussion here. We're going to look at some details and talk through it. So let's have at it.
All right. So there you have it. So when I was standing out there, here's those two LVLs we were talking about, and those are carrying that floor frame. That floor frame comes right out over the interior bearing wall. You can see there, and then the top part of it here. So that outlines the joist, and then here's that subfloor. So a couple of the important pieces here. One, notice we have closure here. So we have solid blocking here. And so the solid blocking gets air sealed, and that allows us to put insulation in here and have all 6 sides of it closure, which makes for very effective cavity insulation. The top side's closed by the subfloor. The end here is by the LVLs, inside by the blocking. The bottom here is closed off by the rigid insulation, and you can notice that we have some blocking here down below, and we have rigid insulation here that's closing that off. And that rigid insulation at the bottom there is basically to battle the thermal breaks that are happening at those locations. And then we have a furring strip in here, and then our finish sealing. There. So, and then you can see there's the wall above, and that's in that same plane down below here. But that's that recessed way. And then we have out here, there's a bump out where we have the LVL, the roof extends. So basically we get a nice covered walkway in here at the entryway. But we have to treat this bottom of the soffit of the floor frame pretty much very similar to the way we would treat the wall section there or the wall section here. Now, up here, the difference is we have a double wall assembly and there also. So here I opted to do continuous rigid insulation with I think we have 14-inch floor joists out there. So, the 14-inch, 40, we're probably in like the R58-ish, R60 range, plus the inch of polyiso closure there is going to take us over the, well over the 60 mark into like R68-ish or so, somewhere in that vicinity for that. But the more important part of this is there's, the insulation certainly plays a role, but getting this blocking in and getting that air sealed properly there, getting an effective closure here, and getting that sealed up and having the plywood come down, and then we have our Siga MyVest comes down, and then we'll simply tape that off to the rigid insulation, and then you can see there's a piece of tape there where we pick up the MyVest here. So basically, if you think about, we took this wall, displaced it, and then filled in that bottom section. But you have to pay attention, and that's part of that red line, right? You've heard me talk about air barrier continuity before. It's basically tracing where the air barrier is and understanding that it's the MyVest to a piece of tape, to the polyiso, to the piece of tape, to the MyVest up the wall. And that's kind of our hot air balloon, air barrier, red line, whatever label you want to put on it, go ahead. And then inside here, we have our 11 inches of cellulose, and here our 14 inches of cellulose. So our thermal, and then we go back to the 11 here. So we have our continuity in thermal control layer, but more importantly, we have that continuity in our air control layer. And then of course, water management, we have the roof here. So our drip line is way out here, free and clear of doing any damage to the house. Nice big 2-foot overhang to make sure that we're nice and clear there. So anyways, that's how we close off that detail.
All right, there you have it. All set, done. If you want more, you know where to find me. Instagram, Steve Baczek Architect. Posting stuff daily. Go check it out. Give it a follow. Tell all your friends. If you're still looking for more, check out all of my colleagues on the Build Show Network here. Literally thousands of videos getting put up. It's amazing the amount of information that's on there free to you. And it's all current stuff we're all doing right here, right now. Lastly, if you want to listen in, we have the Unbuild It podcast. My good friends Jake Bruton, Peter Yost, they join me and we talk everything building. So you can find that on all the popular audio channels at the Unbuild It podcast, or you can find it on YouTube. And then you can watch the antics behind the scenes. So anyways, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining in. Long live our buildings.